Welcome to my little corner of the internet, where we celebrate creativity and growth. Hello, dear viewers. Get ready to expand your horizons as we delve into U.G. Krishnamurti. Uppaluri Gopala Krishnamurti, 9 July 1918 – 22 March 2007, was a philosopher and orator who questioned the state of spiritual liberation. Having pursued a religious path in his youth and eventually rejecting it, U.G. claimed to have experienced a devastating biological transformation on his 49th birthday, an event he refers to as the calamity. He emphasized that this transformation back to the natural state is a rare, acausal, biological occurrence with no religious context. Because of this, he discouraged people from pursuing the natural state as a spiritual goal. He rejected the basis of thought and in doing so negated all systems of thought and knowledge. Hence he explained his assertions were experiential and not speculative, tell them that there is nothing to understand. He was unrelated to his contemporary Jiddu Krishnamurti, although the two men had a number of meetings because of their association with the Theosophical Society, and U.G. has, at times, referred to him as teacher in spite of having ultimately rejected said teachings, as well as the idea that anything could or should be taught in any spiritual context. The spotlight now falls on early life as we delve deeper into its details. U.G. was born on 9 July 1918 in Machilipatnam, a town in coastal Andhra Pradesh, India, and raised in the nearby town of Gudivada. His mother died 7 days after he was born, and he was brought up by his maternal grandfather, a wealthy Brahmin lawyer, who was also involved in the Theosophical Society. U.G. also became a member of the Theosophical Society during his teenage years and mentions having inherited his association with the Theosophical Society from his grandfather. South Indian actresses Gautami and Soumya Prabodha are his very close relatives. During the same period of his life, U.G. reportedly practiced various austerities and sought moksha or liberation. To that end, between the ages of 14 and 21, he undertook a variety of spiritual exercises, determined to find out whether moksha was possible. Wanting to achieve that state, he had also resolved to prove that if there were people who have thus realized themselves, they could not be hypocritical. As part of this endeavor, he searched for a person who was an embodiment of such realization. He spent 7 summers in the Himalayas with Swami Sivananda studying yoga and practicing meditation. During his U.G. began attending the University of Madras, studying psychology, philosophy, mysticism, and the sciences. He dropped out of the master's program with the idea that the answers of the West to what he considered were essential questions were no better than those of the East. Get ready to uncover the mysteries surrounding Quest as we navigate its intriguing terrain. In 1939, at age 21, U.G. met with known spiritual teacher Ramana Maharshi. U.G. related that he asked Ramana, "This thing called moksha, can you give it to me?" To which Ramana Maharshi replied, "I can give it, but can you take it?" This answer completely altered U.G.'s perceptions of the spiritual path and its practitioners. Later, U.G. would say that Maharshi's answer, which he perceived as arrogant, put him back on track. In 1941, he began working for the Theosophical Society in C.W. Leadbeater's library. Shortly after, he began an international lecture tour on behalf of the Society, visiting Norway, Belgium, Germany, and the United States. Returning to India, he married a Brahmin woman named Kusuma Kumari in 1943, at age 25. From 1947 to 1953, U.G. regularly attended talks given by Jiddu Krishnamurti in Madras, India, beginning a direct dialogue with him in 1953. U.G. related that the two had almost daily discussions for a while, which he asserted were not providing satisfactory answers to his questions. Finally, their meetings came to a halt. He described part of the final discussion. After the breakup with Jiddu Krishnamurti, U.G. continued traveling, still lecturing. At about the same time, he claims to have been puzzled by the continuing appearance of certain psychic powers. In 1955, U.G. and his family went to the United States to seek medical treatment for his eldest son, and stayed there for 5 years. Let's now turn our gaze towards London period and explore the fascinating connections it has to offer. He separated from his family and went to live in London. While sitting one day in Hyde Park, he was confronted by a police officer who threatened to lock him up if he didn't leave the park. Down to his last 5 pence, he made his way to the Ramakrishna Mission of London, where the residing Swami gave him money for a hotel room for the night. The following day, U.G. began working for the Ramakrishna Mission, an arrangement that lasted for 3 months. Before leaving the mission, he left a letter for the residing Swamiji telling him that he had become a Newman. About this time, Jiddu Krishnamurti was in London and the two Krishnamurtis renewed their acquaintance. Jiddu tried to advise U.G. on his recent marital troubles, but U.G. didn't want his help. Jiddu eventually persuaded him to attend a few talks he was giving in London, which U.G. did, but found himself bored listening to him. In 1961, U.G. put an end to his relationship with his wife. Their marriage had been an unhappy affair, and by that time he described himself as being detached from his family, emotionally as well as physically. He then left London and spent 3 months living in Paris, using funds he had obtained by selling his unused return ticket to India, during which time he ate a different variety of cheese each day. Down to his last 150 francs, he decided to go to Switzerland, where he still had a small bank account. By mistake, he went by train to Geneva rather than Zurich, where the bank account was. In this chapter, we'll be shedding light on early Swiss period and its role in shaping our understanding. After 2 weeks in Geneva, U.G. was unable to pay his hotel bill and sought refuge at the Indian consulate. He was listless, without hope, and described himself as finished. He requested that he be sent back to India, which the consular authorities refused to do at the state's expense. A consulate employee in hers named Valentine de Kerven offered U.G. shelter. Valentine and U.G. became good friends, and she provided him with a home in Switzerland. For the next few years, the questions regarding the subject of enlightenment or anything else did not interest him, and he did nothing to further his inquiry. But by 1967, U.G. was again concerned with the subject of enlightenment, wanting to know what that state was, which sages such as Siddhartha Gautama purportedly attained. Hearing that Jiddu Krishnamurti was giving a talk in Sonnen, U.G. decided to attend. During the talk, Jiddu was describing the state and U.G. thought that it referred to himself. He explained it as follows. He continues, "As we enter this new chapter, let's navigate the complexities of the calamity and unravel its multifaceted nature." The next day U.G. was again pondering the question, how do I know I am in that state? With no answer forthcoming. He later recounted that on suddenly realizing the question had no answer, there was an unexpected physical, as well as psychological, reaction. It seemed to him like a sudden explosion inside, blasting, as it were, every cell, every nerve and every gland in my body. Afterwards, he started experiencing what he called the calamity, a series of bizarre physiological transformations that took place over the course of a week, affecting each one of his senses, and finally resulting in a death-like experience. He described it this way. Upon the 8th day, U.G. could not, and did not, explain the provenance of the calamity experiences. In response to questions, he maintained that it happened in spite of his preoccupation with and search for enlightenment. He also maintained that the calamity had nothing to do with his life up to that point, or with his upbringing. Several times he described the calamity happening to him as a matter of chance, and he insisted that he could not possibly, in any way, impart that experience to anybody else. In this section, we'll be deep diving into post-calamity, unraveling its complexities and uncovering valuable insights. According to U.G., his life story can be separated into the pre- and post-calamity parts. Describing his post-calamity life, he claimed to be functioning permanently in what he called the natural state, a state of spontaneous, purely physical, sensory existence, characterized by discontinuity though not absence of thought. U.G. also maintained that upon finding himself in the natural state, he had lost all acquired knowledge and memories, and had to relearn everything, as if the slate had been wiped clean. After his calamity experience, U.G. often traveled to countries around the world, declining to hold formal discussions yet talking freely to visitors and those that sought him out. He gave his only formal post-calamity public talk in India in 1972. His unorthodox non-message philosophy and the uncompromising, direct style of its presentation generated a measure of notoriety and sharply divided opinions. At the extremes, some people considered him enlightened, while others considered him nothing more than a charlatan. The clamour increased as books and articles about U.G. and his newly expounded philosophy continued appearing. Several of his group discussions and interviews have been published in books, or are carried verbatim on various websites. There is also a variety of audio and video documents available online. Brace yourself for a deep dive into health as we explore its impact and relevance in our evolving narrative. U.G. was known for his unusual health and diet preferences. Carrying with him a portable kitchen in a tiny suitcase throughout his travels, he consumed a great deal of salt and cream, and stated no meal should take longer than a few minutes to prepare. After 1949, U.G. never saw a doctor or took medication, believing the body would take care of itself. Often complimented for good looks in his old age, U.G. would respond, "That's because I don't eat healthy food, I don't take vitamins, and I don't exercise." Let's transition to death and uncover its significance. On 22 March 2007, U.G. died at Vallecroce in Italy. He had slipped and injured himself and was bedridden for 7 weeks before his death. 3 friends, including long-time devotee Mahesh Bhatt, were in the city with him when he died. Mahesh states in his biography of U.G. Krishnamurti, A Life, that U.G. died alone after Mahesh and those present went out for a brief walk with the specific intention of allowing U.G. some moments of solitude to die in peace. In February 2007, he had dictated his final speech, My Swan Song. U.G. had asked that no rituals or funeral rites be conducted upon his death. Also, he did not leave instructions on how to dispose of his body. His body was cremated by Bhatt the next day. True to his own philosophy, U.G. did not want to be remembered after his death. As we enter this new phase, let's navigate the complexities of philosophy and discover its practical applications. U.G. emphasized the impossibility and non-necessity of any human change, radical or mundane. These assertions, he stated, cannot be considered as a teaching, that is, something intended to be used to bring about a change. He insisted that the body and its actions are already perfect, and he considered attempts to change or mold the body as violations of the peace and the harmony that is already there. The self, as he perceived, is an illusory entity projected by thought and sustained by the demand to bring about change in the world, in itself, or in both. Likewise, U.G. rejected the notion of a knower by turning the epistemological cornerstone cogito, ergo sum by Descartes on its head, claiming that there is no one thinking, there is just thinking. He went one step further in his statement, what is there is about thought but not thought itself. Furthermore, human self-consciousness is not a thing, but a movement, one characterized by perpetual malcontent and a fascist insistence on its own importance and survival. While U.G. denied the existence of an individual mind, he accepted the concept of a world mind, which according to him contained the accumulation of the totality of man's knowledge and experience. He also used thought sphere, atmosphere of thoughts synonymously with the term world mind. He stated that human beings inhabit this thought realm or thought sphere and that the human brain acts like an antenna, picking and choosing thoughts according to its needs. U.G. held all human experience to be the result of this process of thought. The self-consciousness or I in human beings is born out of the need to give oneself continuity through the constant utilization of thought. When this continuity is broken, even for a split second, its hold on the body is broken and the body falls into its natural rhythm. Thought also falls into its natural place, then it can no longer interfere or influence the working of the human body. In the absence of any continuity, the arising thoughts combust. In its natural state, the senses of the body take on independent existences uncoordinated by any inner self, and the ductless glands that correspond to the locations of the Hindu chakras become reactivated. U.G described how it is the pineal gland, or the Ana chakra, that takes over the functioning of the body in the natural state, as opposed to thought. U.G also maintained that the reason people came to him and to gurus was to find solutions for their everyday real problems, and for solutions to a fabricated problem, namely, the search for spirituality and enlightenment. He insisted that this search is caused by the cultural environment, which demands conformity of individuals as it simultaneously places within them the desire to be special, the achievement of enlightenment thus viewed as a cramming expression of an individual's specialness and uniqueness. Consequently, the desire for enlightenment is exploited by gurus, spiritual teachers, and other sellers of shoddy goods, who pretend to offer various ways to reach that goal. According to U.G, all these facilitators never deliver, and cannot ever deliver, since the goal itself, i.e. enlightenment, is unreachable. According to U.G, the so-called self-realization is the discovery for yourself and by yourself that there is no self to discover. That will be a very shocking thing, because it's going to blast every nerve, every cell, even the cells in the marrow of your bones. Prepare yourself for an in-depth analysis of popular culture in this section. The raging sage webcomic features a sage-like character loosely inspired by U.G. The character GJ from Top of the Lake is based on U.G. Your feedback helps me improve, so please take a moment to leave a comment or review.